All right, guys, welcome back. So we started the day off with one best of three already. We get into our second one, but it was Flipside who came out victorious. Davcost stepping up massively on Mirage, and a lot of talk around him. Obviously, I mean, he's played the three majors with them due to simple ESL ban, but stepping up in this situation is huge because there's still speculation around that whole situation about how important Simple was. And now we switch gears. It is CLG going up against the now sponsored by Lounge Gaming. Still don't have their jerseys, as we saw in those pictures, but definitely here to prove a point, and they seem confident going into this game against CLG. To be fair, CLG as well, they've had some great improvements over the last few months. Good last major, but they are kind of streaky at times. Joining me on the desk, and I know I can tell you're eager to talk, Anders. I can already see it in your eye. But it is Anders, and DDK is back again. Of course, Yanko, who's been pulling all the weight, I have to say. He's been carrying me. Anders, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is an exciting matchup. I particularly look forward to CLG playing here. I feel like the Polish lineup is a little bit fractured. I'm not sure if this is like their final form yet, but they've got some dangerous players. And as we've seen today, making predictions can be a little bit tricky. The last game did not really go as anybody had expected. So, yeah, I feel like there's still a chance here in the qualifiers for some interesting upsets.
And the interesting thing about this Polish team as well is that for a long time, the core group of members that are on it were considered the second best Polish team in a lot of ways. And then at the last major qualifier, it was then eBattle, now known as Vexed, who we'll see, I believe, on Friday as their group, but we'll see this week nonetheless, made it through. And at the time, I kind of thought to myself, okay, because they lost the G2 sponsorship just after that, I thought, okay, that's a big reason why. Now I know that that's because they had plans with Kingwin in motion, and eventually those all transpired. But either way, it was a big setback for this roster, so they're definitely going to want to prove a point this event.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of feel that maybe their roster is a bit forced because they had a series of bad results. You know, they had some arguments in their team. Mini's leaving the team after they failed at a local Polish land. They lost to an internationally unknown Polish team, so he didn't want to play with Maus. Then he came back into the team, Maus left the team, and Lord filled the gap, and now they're suddenly have Oscarish instead of Miniz. Lord stayed in the team, and the core of three players, which is Innocent, Michu, and Spero. And Innocent and Michu are really individually skilled and talented players, and they really can put up the numbers against these teams in the qualifier for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always really cool to see the American teams playing, what styles that they tend to bring, because the meta game, even if it's they've copied a little bit. I mean, actually, this is a cool quote actually about this copying thing from, I think it was, who was it again? Anyway, it's if I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. I think it's Isaac Newton, and it's very much this concept that
wow, we're going deep now.
Yeah, it's very much this concept that you want to you want to try to copy the best essentially, and so there is that element, but you do get that flair, that American flair, and JDM64 is very much a hot topic. I would say you could very much argue he's the best AWPer behind Skadul in the North American region right now.
I would agree.
And he is obviously filling in. Well, he replaced Peter, and that was the lineup. That was the famous lineup that in CLG came to MLG X Games. That's been so long ago in the January, and that was they managed to take a map off LDLC, and everyone, which was then before Envious, and everyone was just so hyped up about it. And as you say, streaky. We're still waiting for all that skill to work out. Extremely
streaky, and a lot of it was miscommunication. They had some severe issues with teamwork. That's improved, but still not perfect, and they still tend to tilt a little bit. To go back to your point, though, about Peter coming in, and he was actually a replacement to JDM in the first place. JDM was part of this roster when they were Mousebaz. I guess it seems like I was about to say 2 years ago in Counter-Strike Ages. It's actually about 16 months ago. Yeah. And then Peter came in. When JDM left, they went 0-8 to start off. They made ESCA land, I think, in season 17. Went 0-8 starting the next season without a dedicated AWPer. Peter came in. We saw what happened. Huge rise through the ranks. Qualified for MLG, got picked up by CLG. And then Peter's obviously left. They turned back to their old faithful. And this is the most reliable roster, I would say second to Na'Vi in the entire world, not just North America, in terms of how long they've played together. And some would speculate that that's a huge contribution into their improvements, just the amount of teamwork. And it's kind of weird because teamwork's been an issue for them, but just the familiarity with their teammates.
I would say actually the player that I'm the most excited about on this lineup, it should be JDM or Tarek, because like two are like the really I think star potential players. Tarek sometimes seems to like hit a level all of his own where he just goes completely mad. But for me, it's actually Cutler as an in-game leader, because NA has so few in-game leaders that are worth very much. Sean Gers is obviously one of them. I actually think Adren has a very good understanding of the game. I'm just not always sure it
applies well to his team.
He doesn't always translate so well into the team, but that I think is fixable. But it hasn't been fixed quite yet. But
we're going to talk about that tomorrow in depth, because they look promising right now.
But Cutler's got he's got some very, very good calling. A CT signed on a bunch of maps. He's obviously doing a lot of homework, and I feel like he's only just starting out in that role. So if he keeps like putting this much work into it, which is really hard. That's super exciting. Like that will benefit the whole region and not just CLG actually.
And the other thing about him as well in that calling role, interestingly enough, that he's also become the Bondic, the Cajun B, the dead consistent player that they need in a lot of cases, because like you say, Tarek, it should be him, and he has that other level but doesn't always hit it. So Cutler's been a guy that they can look to. He's an FNS sometimes that come under scrutiny for not stepping it up, and FNS, his excuse used to be that he was the in-game leader. Well, now that weight is on Cutler's shoulders, and you're right, that's been a big step forward.
There's another weight that's off their shoulders this time around, which is almost every other time that CLG have been playing in Europe. We've had Moses over here to rain on their parade, and he's not here this time. So
thank God.
Someone else might.
Do you know why he's not here? He didn't have enough hair to make it. Oh, see, we all have great hair. He couldn't be here.
I mean, I feel like at some point I'm going to head Moses' way. It has to happen at some point eventually.
You make up for it, though, with the chin, right? Although that's true, he has a beard, too. Yeah. He's already tweeted me at this point telling me I'm dead. It's the second person to threaten me this week.
Yeah, you're on a roll, mate. I think like it's going to be interesting. I actually watched like your show when JDM was the guest there, and in that little time you actually allowed him to say something.
that particular show was that one was good.
Good job there. Okay, so yeah, in that little time you allowed him to speak. He actually said that they're like working on a lot of different stuff. They're trying to expand their map pool. They know that is like a potential weakness for them. They never used to play Inferno, but then at IEM they had like they lost 16-13 to Envy on Inferno, which is like they're like god tier on Inferno basically. So maybe that's something they worked on in the meantime. And like there's a fun fact, actually, if I can like call it that, when I was like looking through CLG before this event, like since Cologne, they played like around 52, 53 maps, like in total. That's like a bit more than a month, and they went to win out LAN as well, like in between that time. So I hope that they found enough time to practice, like even if they had so many online matches. It certainly takes a toll, because like major is basically more important than anything else. So you can see them like losing to PTR's new team, like Accelerate, or I'm not sure.
Who actually aren't even in the ESEA Pro League. They're in the CEVO Pro division.
Yeah, and it was like for Face It qualifier or something, which is like it's a major league as well. It's not, but there is that thing. You don't want to show everything you have before the major qualifiers.
Yeah, well, again, it does put them under pressure. Like we said, they have stepped forward, but they still haven't made gains. The other interesting thing about them is how close they were to making it out of the groups in Cologne. They were arguably closer than Cloud9 in their deciding game, 2 rounds apart, and that seems to be a curse for them when they play top teams. They're always right there. They've got that best of one upset potential. We've seen it a few times, mostly Dust 2. We saw it at ESEA Pro League. We saw it at MLG. But then when it comes down to it, they're always just that little bit short as well.
IEM at Gamescom, they played really, really close to a bunch of teams there as well. I think they almost beat Navi. Also not Navi.
They lost to
Fnatic, I think.
No, it was TSM was there.
Yeah,
they lost 16-14 to TSM on Cobble, I think.
Yeah.
16-13 to Envy on Inferno.
Yeah.
They lost 16-13 to NIP on Dust 2 on the majors. So it's like basically it's like 4 different maps on those 2 tournaments that they lost like from 16-12 to 16-14, so that's in Counter-Strike, that's one round. One key round that forces the other team to eco instead of yourself, that's all it takes. So they're definitely right up there.
Let's take a look at our teams. We've talked a little bit about them already, obviously, but we'll look player to player. CLG coming up first, and I guess, Anders, I'll let you go through player to player here.
Right, hazed all the way at the end here. I would say just all-around utility player in this particular lineup. I think he has to just play like a steady level. Don't expect any kind of superstar performance from him, but definitely just want a steady performance. Same goes for Finesse. I really do want him to sort of translate into like much more of a support role. I think that suits what he does a little bit better. He has like some peaks, but not as much as I would want. So I'd rather have him have a stable performance here. Cutler, as I said, for me, the most exciting guy on this team because of him taking on the in-game leader role. He actually does perform really consistently, regardless, which is kind of scary to think about.
I wonder if he's Moses' favorite player.
You mean there's a similarity going on there? In terms of just raw fragging power, Tarek is going to be the guy to carry it through here. Him and JDM in the end, I feel like these are the two people to do it. Tarek used to be known as like the ultimate online hero, would never do anything on LAN, but always, just drop a lot of frags online. And that's changed, and it must have been hard work. It's not easy to acclimatize to that LAN environment, but he's done really well doing it. And I've got JDM 64 on the end. I think a player who initially in Global Offensive struggled a lot with consistency issues, and that's been smoothed out. It's been better and better recently. So these two players on the end, I think in terms of raw fragging, those are the ones you have to look for. In terms of like the more subtle aspects of the game, it has to be the other three, I think. So there's like a good divide in the team there.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about that. Of course, North America loves to look at changing players rather than dealing with issues. And since that change in role, there's been a lot of talk about Hayes and FNS in particular. But there you go. There you have it. Tarek is the highest rated player. Surprise, surprise. And Mirage listed as their best map. We'll see if they can manage to sneak that into the veto. But Yanko, you actually gave a good history of these guys, so I'll let you do the introductions for Lounge Gaming, or Lounge.gg, I guess they're called.
So the first player is Spero. He's actually one of those 3 players that played in the Gamers 2 lineup as well. He picked up the op fairly recently, maybe a couple of months ago, like out of necessity, I think, more than anything else. We'll see how he fares up against JDM. The second player is Oscarish. He's like probably the guy we know the least about. He used to play in Killer Fish. It's like mostly German mixed teams, like nowhere near like the international top tier level of play. So we'll see how he fares. Here we have like the legend from 1.6, the original member of the Golden Five. It's Lord. He used to coach this team while they were still Gamers 2, and as I said, he moved in. Probably it was supposed to be temporary. It turns out it's permanent. So he's going to be the in-game leader and more of a support type of a player. And next up is Mihu. He's an amazingly individually skilled player, and he was standing in for VP a couple of times when some of their players were unable to attend, and he was always speculated that if someone were to retire out of those 3 players, Taz, Pash or Neo, that Mihu is going to be the guy they're going to pick up. And last but not least, it's Innocent. Also an extremely talented player. I think he was maybe the in-game leader before they had a coach or anything, not really sure about that, but yeah, he's a guy who you will look to also like win those clutch rounds and then make the high impact frags in the round.
And Mihu stepping in for Virtus Pro as well at one tournament for Snacks. I think it was Gfinity actually, and did quite well. That was sort of his first, I guess, re-rise to notoriety, if you want to call it that. But
the thing with this team is that no one is going to expect a huge amount from them at the moment, because
that's true.
Because what people will be remembering most when you're talking about players like Mihu, as well as that potential for him to play on Virtus Pro and almost a shot at greatness within the Polish scene. With the old Gamers 2 lineup, we actually had like a really solid and consistent group of players. I think you alluded to it before, when we had Muse in the lineup and so on, and Rylan just kicking around. And they were a pretty core lineup, and they had a very cool kind of strategies, like series of strategies that worked for them quite well. Like very good rifling, very aggressive play, simple team play, but they were a pretty damn decent team, and they focus on a lot of team play. Right now, we really don't know how this team is going to perform because it is kind of a new thing still.
And interesting to note as well, when we did see the overview there of the team, both teams like Mirage, both teams' favorite map, so we might actually see Mirage get into that map pool. But to talk a little bit more about the game, of course, we do have Daddy and his 14-year-old son, Tarek.
Thanks, Daddy. Tarek, don't just ignore that. This is just Matt trying to throw me off. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good, good, good. All right, something that I would quickly like to cover is your online results coming into this tournament. Generally, you guys are pretty consistent, but sometimes it can be up and down. How are things at the moment?
Honestly, we've been slacking online. Like, we've had this problem where we play good on LAN and then we suck online. So we're trying to like figure out what the issue is, and hopefully we can resolve that.
At this point, you guys are pretty damn experienced, you know, domestically in the US and internationally. You've had some pretty interesting results, like, for instance, that time you beat Titan, among other things. How comfortable are you feeling coming into this event?
I feel pretty good. I think our group is pretty good for us. I think everyone in our group is, like, even, so everyone can beat anyone. So, I mean, overall, I feel confident.
Did you watch the match between the Wolves and Flipside that just happened? It was pretty funny one. Did you get any reads on the team? Were you watching even?
I watched a bit of the first and second game. I know the first game they got crushed on train. Second game they had like some sick comeback, Flipside. So Copenhagen was really struggling on their CT sides. But I did take a note at their vetoes and bans and see what they pick and how they play.
Are you feeling then, after watching them and coming up against CSGO Lounge, I think we're calling them that at the moment. Obviously, there's that whole thing with their name. Are you feeling good about the competition?
Yeah, I think we have a good chance. I think everyone on my team is confident. I think we should be able to, you know, crush them 2-0. Let's do this.
Okay, great. Well, that's a pretty confident statement. So, yeah, like my friends over there mentioned, you guys have been a roster for quite a while now. JDM, obviously, the most recent addition, but the rest of you, the core four, you've been going for a while, and so that must play into your favour as a team, I would imagine.
I definitely think we have that as an edge over the other teams' experience. We've been playing together for so long. We've attended so many events online and on LAN, so I think it's going to play a factor, definitely.
Yeah, so overall then, you're feeling comfortable and you think this is going to go to a 2-0?
That's the plan.
All right, well, Tarek, best of luck. Guys, that's it from us here. Daddy, back to you.
Thank you so much, Pala. Eventually, Tarek is going to get sick of the 14-year-old jokes, and he's just gonna like walk off the interview and just go over here.
This has to stop.
Can you
sorry.
Like,
Are you putting your foot down?
Yes.
Here's a pillow to choke him with next time he does that.
That's something Daddy would do.
Good cut.
It'll stop. We can smother you with it if you'd rather, if that's easier for you to just end it.
Say to kiss.
Okay, all right.
You can try.
I'm going to stop now. I'm being threatened by a Serbian.
This guy's like the silent but deadly type. Like, I'm really getting a dangerous vibe here. You shouldn't push him any further, man. Seriously.
Okay, well, back to reality then. Tarek predicting a 2-0. We're going to have the veto come up in just 1 second, but I don't know. We'll get to your predictions. Is that confidence? Does he think that he knows enough about? Well, okay, well there it is. Does he think they have enough scouting report against this newer Polish roster?
I love this. I think it's so boring when people say, you know, yeah, it's going to be an interesting match. We'll try our best. I'm sure they're very good. We have a lot of respect for them. I'd much rather people just, if you feel like you're going to win, you should be able to come out and say, we're the best and we're going to crush them, and that's it. I mean, it's maybe not quite what Tarek said, but I like the confidence. I think it's great.
Yeah, for sure. And I, like you asked about the map, so it looks to me like CLG didn't do their homework as well as they could have, because Overpass, they allowed it to slip through. I'm not sure if they like practiced it themselves a lot. It was not like, I remember them losing to SK on it with Nico as a stand-in on IEM. But Overpass was a map for the old Gamers 2 lineup, which was like the map they would upset like tier 1 teams on. I can't tell right now. I think they beat either Navi or TSM, someone like that. But, you know, for a team of that caliber to beat a tier 1 team, it's like real amazing. So I think that's a slip up from CLG. I'm not sure why they banned Cash. Like that's supposed to be a good map for them as well, right?
Yeah.
Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, the cash thing is actually super surprising to me. It's very likely that CLG, I mean, as you were talking about with JDM64, they've been trying out a lot of new stuff. And the fact is, you know, whether they are ready to, actually implement the new stuff just yet, that's really the question here, because this is definitely a new approach. Overpass is a map where it should, in theory, favor them. I have seen them play it quite a lot in some of their online matches, so they're definitely comfortable with the map. And going up against this Polish team, I actually still favor them there. So I actually feel like this map veto does actually work out quite well in their favor.
Yep.
And
yeah, Mirage is the deciding map, not too bad either. That's another strength of the old Gamers 2 lineup.
Strength for both, truthfully. So it actually comes down to be a good decider when you look at this specifically. I might actually look toward the Polish side to take this one based on the map veto. It's really going to have to be a matter of CLG showing up. I think it is interesting that Cash has gone out. It's a map they've improved a lot upon. But when you go back as far as, you know, January, February, even early March, they were horrific on their CT sides. So it's also has been a bone of contention for them. So
what's the prediction? Is that what we're doing now?
Go. Yeah. What's prediction and play? We got a little bit of time, so you can elaborate a little bit on your player pick. But I definitely want a prediction.
I've been swept away by Tarek's confidence. I think they're going to take it 2-0. I think CLG are actually a really, really good team. I think the mistake here would be to translate their earlier sort of results against tier 1 teams in Europe to this, because playing tier 2 teams is not always the same. Like there'll be a different mechanic on the Polish side here. It'll be a little bit harder for them to read, and the Cutler is the in-game leader. He will have prepared for a lot of other teams, probably than this one specifically. So I think it'll still be close, but I think 2-0 is a result that could happen.
For me, I was thinking 2-0 straight away when I was looking at this match, because firstly, we do have a new team, new dynamics at play with the Polish side, something that maybe they're not as used to. CLG, they're very drilled together. They've had JDM64 for quite some time now. They play quite a lot of matches with them, just as Janko said. So for me, Dust 2 is a great starting map for CLG as well. So much comfort. We've seen them have some of their best results, and they've created the best upsets on that map. So if they really start going on that map, and I do believe actually pound for pound, we've got more strength when it comes to individual skill as well.
And it's a map where Tarek can go ham. Like it's an ideal map for Tarek basically to pull through.
And we get to see JDM64, see how he's going to be flexing his AWP muscles, because it's so cool on Dust 2. So Dust 2 I see being not necessarily convincing, but I think they'll be quite comfortable.
It is the map that they've always had the upset potential on as well. Again, the LDLC game comes to mind now. Envious, I guess, sort of the envious roster after the recent changes. But yeah, I'm not surprised to see that go in. Yanko.
Yeah, well, I would have said 2-0, but now that I see that Overpass slipped through, I think that could be a map where Lounge can upset CLG, but in the end, I think that CLG is going to pull through either way, either 2-0, 2-1, and I think the player we should watch should probably be JDM as well, since he's been on a upswing recently. Like he's been like the one maybe even carrying CLG more than even Tarek, so we'll see how that pans out for them.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be those guys that have to step up. And I think Mihoof is another player on the Polish side that could really be a factor. He was, when he subbed in for VP, a guy that pushed through apartments, much like Snacks used to do. And on Overpass, there's a lot of room to do that as well out toward Long, the bathrooms area. I think that he could be a huge factor in their game.
He's always been massively just like a star player, massively so. I think when it came to that Virtus Pro thing, it was like between him and Hyper, if I'm not mistaken. But I think Hyper, there was like some drama going on there. But both of them are just so insanely good individually. They can create so many opportunities for their team. And Mihu, you're going to put more focus on a rifle, then like he's not really going to be sniping or something like that. And this is where I think a difference can really be made with him and JDM64.
I mean, one of the players who used to play in this lineup, Minis, he actually stood in for, I think it was Snacks during Fragmite Masters LAN when Virtus Pro went there, and actually did super well. So it's kind of sad that he isn't in this lineup anymore. I feel like he's still a very strong player, but yeah, Mihu Innocent also very good on this team. I think he's sort of a very stable player, and also, as far as I can tell, just from talking to him, sort of like very cool and relaxed. Like, it's going to take a lot, I think, before this team starts to really freak out. So even if they're going to get beat maybe on Dust 2, I think they can sort of mentally survive just fine into Overpass. I think they'll have to focus on that.
All right, well, Knife is apparently going live, so we'll jump into the game. Bringing you the action, it's going to be Natu and Semler. Take it away, gentlemen.